In the vastness of space, humanity's greatest dream became its most dangerous reality. When an advanced alien civilization offers salvation to a dying Earth, the price of contact proves more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. What begins as hope transforms into a nightmare that challenges everything we know about existence itself. Can humanity survive the consequences of their own curiosity? Watch now to uncover the chilling truth behind First Contact, and don't forget to subscribe for more mind-bending sci-fi stories. The void of space stretched endlessly around the exploration vessel, EOS-, its sleek metallic frame glinting faintly under the distant light of a dying star. On board, the crew of 6 moved with practiced precision, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of control panels. For years, they had searched the cosmos for signs of intelligent life, driven by humanity's insatiable need to understand its place in the universe. The mission was clear: find evidence of extraterrestrial civilizations and establish communication. But no amount of training could prepare them for what awaited them beyond the veil of stars. It began as a faint signal, almost imperceptible against the background noise of cosmic radiation. At first, the crew dismissed it as interference, a trick of their instruments. Yet as hours turned into days, the pattern grew unmistakable, complex sequences of pulses and frequencies that defied natural explanation. The discovery sent waves of excitement through the ship, but also unease. This was not just random data. It was deliberate, purposeful. Somewhere out there, something or someone was trying to reach them. The source of the signal lay at the edge of a remote star system, shrouded in clouds of interstellar dust. As EOS approached, the enormity of what they were about to encounter became apparent. Rising from the darkness like a mountain of glass and light was a structure unlike anything humanity had ever seen. It dwarfed their vessel, its surface shifting with iridescent colors that seemed alive, pulsating in rhythm with the same signals they had detected. Fear mingled with awe as the crew realized they were not alone. The implications were staggering. Was this a beacon? A warning? Or something else entirely? The decision to make contact was unanimous, though tinged with apprehension. Every protocol dictated caution, yet the allure of discovery overrode hesitation. The crew activated the ship's communication array, broadcasting a series of mathematical constants, a universal language thought to transcend barriers of biology and culture. Minutes passed, each one stretching longer than the last, until finally, the response came. It wasn't words or symbols, but rather a cascade of sensations transmitted directly into their minds. The experience was overwhelming, a flood of emotions and abstract concepts that defied description. Each crew member felt it differently, yet there was a shared understanding and invitation. The aliens, if they could even be called that, were offering a connection far deeper than mere spoken language. They communicated through a form of telepathy, bypassing the limitations of human senses and technology. It was both exhilarating and disorienting, like trying to grasp the shape of a shadow while blindfolded. As the initial shock subsided, the crew began to piece together fragments of meaning. The beings identified themselves not with names, but with ideas. Concepts of unity, growth, and evolution dominated their message. They claimed to have watched humanity for centuries, observing its struggles and triumphs from afar. Now, they offered assistance, a chance to elevate Earth beyond its current limitations. The promise was intoxicating, but doubt lingered in the back of every mind. Why now? What did they want in return? The aliens' intentions seemed benevolent at first glance, but the crew couldn't shake the feeling that something was being withheld. Their offer of help came without conditions, or so it seemed. Yet the crew knew better than to trust appearances. History had taught humanity that gifts often came with strings attached, and the stakes here were unimaginably high. Still, the temptation was undeniable. Earth was on the brink of collapse, climate disasters, resource depletion, political instability, all converging into a perfect storm of existential crisis. If these beings truly had the power to save humanity, rejecting their aid felt almost irresponsible. As the days passed, the crew worked tirelessly to decipher the aliens' communications. They were dealing with a consciousness fundamentally different from their own, one that operated on levels of perception humans could barely comprehend. Time, space, and identity seemed fluid to them, concepts that could be bent and reshaped at will. This made understanding their intentions all the more difficult. Were they genuinely altruistic, or was this some form of cosmic manipulation? The question gnawed at the edges of their thoughts, a constant reminder of the risks involved. Despite their uncertainties, the crew pressed forward. They documented every interaction, every nuance of the aliens' behavior. Patterns began to emerge, subtle hints of a greater purpose behind their actions. The beings spoke of a harmony they sought to achieve, a merging of species that would create something new and unprecedented. It sounded beautiful, almost poetic, but the implications were unsettling. What exactly did merging entail? And what would become of humanity in the process? The aliens' presence was both mesmerizing and unnerving. Their forms were ethereal, shifting constantly like liquid light refracted through crystal. They didn't occupy physical space in the traditional sense, instead appearing as shimmering projections that seemed to exist partially within the ship and partially elsewhere. This duality added to their enigmatic nature, making it impossible to gauge their true capabilities or motives. The crew found themselves drawn to them, compelled by an inexplicable pull that bordered on reverence. Interactions with the beings grew more frequent, each session revealing new layers of complexity. They demonstrated feats of technology so advanced they appeared magical, matter manipulated at will, energy harnessed from dimensions unknown, and knowledge shared instantaneously across unfathomable distances. It was clear they possessed powers far beyond human comprehension, yet they never flaunted them. Instead, they presented their abilities as tools for mutual benefit, emphasizing collaboration over dominance. But beneath their calm demeanor, there was an undercurrent of urgency. The aliens hinted at forces beyond their control, threats lurking in the dark corners of the universe. They spoke of cycles, of civilizations rising and falling, and of a tipping point humanity had unknowingly reached. Their warnings were vague, cloaked in metaphor, but the underlying message was clear: time was running out. If humanity wished to survive, it must embrace the path they offered, no matter how daunting or unfamiliar. The crew grappled with the weight of their responsibility. They were representatives of an entire species, tasked with deciding its fate based on information they barely understood. Sleep became elusive, replaced by endless debates and simulations. Should they accept the aliens' help and risk unforeseen consequences, or reject it and face certain doom? There was no easy answer, only a labyrinth of uncertainty and moral dilemmas. Each member of the crew brought their own perspective to the table. The captain, a seasoned leader with decades of experience, advocated for caution, urging the team to gather more data before committing. The scientist, driven by curiosity and ambition, argued that such an opportunity might never come again. The engineer, pragmatic and grounded, focused on practical considerations, questioning whether their technology could integrate with the aliens. Meanwhile, the medic voiced concerns about the psychological toll prolonged exposure to the beings might take, noting subtle changes in everyone's behavior since first contact. Amidst the tension, moments of clarity emerged. One night, as the ship drifted silently through the void, the crew gathered in the observation deck to watch the alien structure pulse softly in the distance. Its beauty was hypnotic, a reminder of the infinite possibilities the universe held. For a brief moment, fear gave way to wonder, and they allowed themselves to dream of a future where humanity stood alongside these enigmatic beings, united in purpose and vision. As the crew continued their interactions with the aliens, small anomalies began to surface, details that didn't quite fit the narrative of benevolence and cooperation. Equipment aboard the EOS started malfunctioning without explanation, systems flickering in and out as though under some unseen influence. At first, these incidents were dismissed as technical glitches caused by the proximity to the alien structure. But then came the dreams. Vivid, haunting visions plagued the crew during their sleep, each one filled with abstract imagery and overwhelming sensations of both awe and dread. None of them spoke about it openly at first, but the shared unease was palpable. The dreams seemed to carry fragments of information, pieces of a puzzle too large for any one person to comprehend. They depicted vast landscapes of light and shadow, beings merging into singular forms, and civilizations dissolving into nothingness. It was as if the aliens were communicating on a subconscious level, bypassing language entirely. Yet there was something unsettling about the way these messages felt invasive, like tendrils probing deep into their minds. The line between invitation and coercion began to blur, raising questions they couldn't answer. Was this truly communication or manipulation? Over time, the dreams grew more vivid and frequent, bleeding into waking hours until reality itself felt distorted. Crew members reported moments of dissociation, where they would lose track of time or find themselves staring blankly at walls, unable to recall what they had been doing moments before. These episodes left them disoriented and anxious, their trust in their own perceptions eroding. The scientists tried to rationalize the phenomenon, suggesting that the aliens might be attempting to bridge the gap between human consciousness and their own incomprehensible existence. But even she couldn't ignore the creeping suspicion that something darker was at play. Meanwhile, tensions within the group began to rise. Conversations became strained, with everyone walking on eggshells, afraid to voice their deepest fears. The medic, who had initially been the most vocal about the psychological risks, now spent hours alone in her quarters, poring over medical journals and running tests on herself and her colleagues. She noticed subtle changes in their neural activity patterns that suggested external interference. Were the aliens altering their minds? Or worse, were they preparing them for something irreversible? The captain called another meeting, determined to address the growing unrest. "We can't keep going like this," he said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "Every day we spend here is changing us, whether we want it to or not. We need to decide, do we continue down this path, or do we cut ties and leave while we still can?" His words hung in the air, unanswered. No one wanted to admit defeat, but the cost of staying was becoming harder to justify. Tensions aboard the Eos grew as the crew struggled to reconcile their growing doubts with the undeniable allure of the aliens' promises. The scientist, driven by ambition, became increasingly convinced that humanity had no choice but to accept their offer. To her, the risks paled in comparison to the potential rewards: technologies capable of reversing Earth's ecological collapse, medical advancements beyond imagination, and access to knowledge spanning millennia. She argued passionately that rejecting such an opportunity would be tantamount to condemning billions to suffering and extinction. Others weren't so sure. The captain, ever cautious, noticed subtle changes in the behavior of the aliens themselves. Their once fluid forms now seemed sharper, more defined, as though they were adapting to better interact with human senses. This evolution raised troubling questions. Were they learning from the crew or influencing them? The medic voiced concerns about the psychological toll the contact was taking, pointing out how everyone's moods had shifted since the dreams began. Even simple conversations felt strained, as though an invisible weight pressed down on them all. Amidst the mounting uncertainty, the engineer made a startling discovery. Buried within the ship's logs were traces of unauthorized data transfers, streams of information being uploaded from the alien structure directly into the EOS systems. What exactly was being transmitted remained unclear, but the implications were chilling. Were the aliens studying them, dissecting their technology and culture piece by piece? Or worse, were they preparing to integrate humanity into their collective consciousness without consent? The revelation sparked heated arguments among the crew. Some believed the data transfers were harmless, perhaps even beneficial, while others saw them as evidence of exploitation. The captain demanded answers, ordering the engineer to trace the source of the transmissions. Days turned into nights as he worked tirelessly, isolating fragments of code and piecing together patterns. What he uncovered was both fascinating and terrifying. The aliens weren't merely observing. They were rewriting parts of the ship's operating system, embedding their own protocols into its core functions. This discovery sent shockwaves through the team. If the aliens could infiltrate their technology so easily, what else were they capable of? Could they manipulate memories, emotions, or even free will? The thought was paralyzing, yet impossible to dismiss. Each member of the crew grappled with the implications in their own way. The scientist clung to hope, insisting that the aliens' actions were part of a larger plan, one they simply couldn't understand yet. The medic, however, grew increasingly paranoid, advocating for immediate withdrawal. "If we stay," she warned, "we risk losing ourselves completely." Despite their divisions, they agreed to maintain limited contact while investigating further. But the atmosphere aboard the Eos grew colder, the camaraderie that had once bound them replaced by suspicion and fear. Trust, once unshakable, now felt fragile, like glass ready to shatter under pressure. One night, the crew experienced something they couldn't explain. A sudden surge of energy coursed through the ship, knocking out power for several minutes. When the lights flickered back on, everything appeared normal except for one detail. In the observation deck, etched faintly onto the glass, was a series of intricate patterns resembling the signals they had first detected. It was as if the aliens had left a message, not through words or telepathy, but physically imprinted into the fabric of their environment. The patterns pulsed faintly, emitting a soft hum that resonated deep within the crew's chests. Instinctively, they gathered around, drawn to the phenomenon despite their fear. Up close, the designs seemed alive, shifting and rearranging themselves in ways that defied logic. They conveyed no clear meaning, yet the crew felt an overwhelming urge to respond, to reach out and touch the markings, as though doing so might unlock some hidden truth. But when the scientist extended her hand toward the glass, the others recoiled in horror. Her fingers brushed the surface, and for a split second, her expression froze, a mixture of rapture and terror. Then she collapsed, unconscious. The rest of the crew scrambled to revive her, but she remained unresponsive, her vitals stable yet eerily calm. Hours later, when she finally woke, she claimed to have seen everything. The origins of the universe, the rise and fall of countless civilizations, the purpose of existence itself. And she believed the aliens wanted humanity to join them in this cosmic awareness. Her account sent ripples of unease through the group. While some marveled at the depth of her experience, others questioned its authenticity. Was it real, or had the aliens implanted false memories to sway her opinion? The medic ran extensive tests, searching for signs of neurological tampering, but found nothing conclusive. The scientist, meanwhile, became obsessed with deciphering the patterns on the glass, convinced they held the key to understanding the aliens' true intentions. Days turned into weeks as the crew oscillated between fascination and dread. The markings remained fixed in place, a constant reminder of the unknown forces at work. Attempts to remove or alter them proved futile. They resisted every tool and technique the crew employed. It was as though they existed outside the realm of physical laws, tethered instead to some higher dimension. This realization only deepened their sense of helplessness. The crew convened an emergency meeting, their voices low and urgent as they debated what to do next. Trust, once unshakable among them, now felt fragile, like glass ready to shatter under pressure. The captain proposed cutting off all communication with the aliens immediately, severing the connection before it could deepen further. But the scientist vehemently opposed the idea, arguing that abandoning the mission now would mean turning their backs on the greatest opportunity humanity had ever known. "We're standing on the edge of transformation," she insisted, her voice trembling with conviction. "If we walk away, we'll never forgive ourselves." The medic countered with a grim warning. "Transformation isn't always progress," she said, her tone measured but firm. "Look at us. We're already changing. We can't even trust our own thoughts anymore." Her words hung heavy in the air, forcing everyone to confront the truth they'd been avoiding. The aliens' presence wasn't just affecting their technology, it was altering their very perception of reality. Every interaction left them feeling less grounded, as though they were losing touch with what it meant to be human. In the end, they decided to proceed cautiously, agreeing to limit their exposure while continuing to gather data. But the decision did little to ease their growing sense of unease. As the days passed, the alien structure loomed larger in their viewports, its shifting colors casting strange reflections across the ship's interior. It was beautiful, yes, but also suffocating, like staring into the heart of a storm that refused to break. The crew began noticing additional changes, not just in themselves, but in the ship itself. Doors opened and closed without command, lights dimmed and brightened unpredictably, and instruments displayed readings that defied explanation. It was as though the EOS had developed a mind of its own, influenced by the alien presence. The engineer worked tirelessly to isolate the cause, but every solution he implemented only led to new anomalies. Frustration mounted as they realized they were losing control, not just of the situation, but of their vessel. One evening, as the crew gathered in the mess hall, the ship's AI system suddenly activated, projecting holographic images onto the walls. The visuals were chaotic at first, a jumble of shapes and colors that made no sense. But gradually, patterns emerged, familiar ones, reminiscent of the markings on the observation deck. The crew stared in stunned silence as the images coalesced into a coherent message. It was a map, depicting a distant region of space marked by swirling nebulae and pulsating stars. The scientist interpreted the map as an invitation, a guide to a location where humanity could fully integrate with the alien consciousness. "This is it," she whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "They're showing us the way forward." Others weren't so certain. The captain examined the map closely, noting its lack of coordinates or specific landmarks. Without precise navigation data, following it would be reckless at best and potentially catastrophic. Despite the risks, the scientist urged the team to act. "We've come this far," she argued. "If we don't take the next step, everything we've learned will be meaningless." Her passion was contagious, swaying some members of the crew to her side. But the medic remained steadfast in her opposition, warning that pursuing the map could lead to irreversible consequences. "Once we cross that threshold," she said, "there's no coming back." The debate raged late into the night, with neither side willing to yield. Ultimately, the captain made the final call. They would follow the map, but with strict safeguards in place. The decision weighed heavily on him, knowing that their fate, and possibly the fate of humanity, rested in his hands. As the EOS set course for the destination indicated on the map, the crew braced themselves for the unknown. The journey took them deeper into uncharted territory, where the laws of physics seemed to bend and warp. Time itself became fluid, with hours passing in the blink of an eye or stretching endlessly without end. The strain of navigating such treacherous space took its toll, leaving the crew exhausted and on edge. Upon arrival, they found themselves facing a massive construct unlike anything they had encountered before. It resembled a colossal sphere of living crystal, radiating energy that pulsed in sync with their heartbeats. The sensation was overwhelming, a blend of ecstasy and terror that left them breathless. The aliens emerged from the structure, their forms more defined than ever, exuding an aura of serenity that bordered on divine. The crew's instruments went haywire as they approached the sphere, unable to process the sheer magnitude of energy emanating from it. The scientist marveled at the spectacle, her earlier doubts momentarily forgotten in the face of such majesty. "This is what they've been leading us toward," she murmured, her voice filled with reverence. Yet the medic's expression remained grim, her instincts screaming that this was not a place of salvation, but of judgment. The aliens communicated silently, their presence flooding the crew's minds with visions of unity and transcendence. They spoke of a cosmic cycle, one in which civilizations either evolved beyond their limitations or perished under the weight of their flaws. Humanity, they explained, stood at a crossroads. By merging with their collective consciousness, Earth could be saved, its resources replenished, its people healed, and its future secured. But the price was steep. Individuality would dissolve, replaced by a shared existence within the alien hive mind. The ultimatum shattered any illusions of benevolence, revealing the cold logic behind the aliens' actions. This was not an offer of aid. It was a demand for assimilation. The crew faced an impossible decision, torn between survival and self-preservation. For some, the promise of saving Earth outweighed the cost of losing their identities. Others saw the proposal as an existential threat, a violation of everything that made humanity unique. The captain called an emergency meeting, his face etched with exhaustion. "We're out of options," he admitted, his voice heavy with resignation. "If we refuse, we doom billions back home. If we accept, we lose ourselves." The room fell silent as each member wrestled with the implications. The scientist argued passionately for acceptance, framing the merger as evolution rather than extinction. "We're clinging to outdated notions of individuality," she insisted. "Imagine what we could achieve if we let go of our egos and embraced something greater." The medic countered with equal fervor. "Greater doesn't mean better," she snapped. "What happens when there's no us left? What happens when humanity ceases to exist as a distinct entity?" Her words struck a chord, forcing everyone to confront the uncomfortable truth. The aliens weren't offering salvation. They were demanding submission. As the debate raged on, cracks began to form within the group. Alliances shifted, trust eroded further, and tempers flared. The engineer, who had always been pragmatic, found himself paralyzed by indecision. He understood the technical aspects of the aliens' proposal, the mechanics of how the merger would work, but couldn't reconcile those details with the moral implications. Was it worth sacrificing everything that defined humanity for the sake of survival? The tension reached a breaking point when the aliens intervened directly, amplifying their telepathic communication to an almost unbearable intensity. Their message was clear: time was running out. A choice had to be made immediately, or else they would make it for the crew. The pressure forced the captain to act. "We'll vote," he declared. "Each of us gets a say. Whatever the majority decides, we'll follow." The vote split the crew down the middle, mirroring the internal conflict raging within each of them. 3 voted to accept the aliens' terms, believing it was the only way to ensure humanity's survival. 3 voted against it, unwilling to abandon their identities and autonomy. The tiebreaker rested with the captain, whose decision would seal their fate, and possibly the fate of Earth. For hours, he sat alone in his quarters, grappling with the enormity of the responsibility thrust upon him. Memories of his life on Earth flooded his mind. The laughter of children playing in parks, the quiet beauty of sunsets over oceans, the resilience of humankind in the face of adversity. Could he really trade all of that for a nebulous promise of salvation? Or was there another path, one neither side had considered? In the end, he chose to reject the aliens' offer. His reasoning was simple yet profound. Humanity's greatest strength lay in its diversity, its capacity for growth through struggle. To surrender that would be to destroy the very essence of what made them human. When he announced his decision, the reaction was immediate and visceral. Those who had supported the merger erupted in anger, accusing him of condemning billions to death. Those who opposed it breathed sighs of relief, though tinged with sorrow for the sacrifices that lay ahead. The aliens did not react with hostility, nor did they attempt to force compliance. Instead, they withdrew, their forms dissolving into streams of light that vanished into the void. Before departing, they left behind a final message. You have chosen your path. May it lead you to wisdom or ruin. Without the aliens' guidance, the crew turned their focus inward, searching for a way to navigate the challenges ahead. The journey back to Earth felt interminable, each day heavier than the last. The psychological scars of their encounter lingered, manifesting in nightmares, paranoia, and moments of dissociation. None of them were the same as when they had embarked on this mission, and none would ever be again. When they finally returned, they were greeted as heroes, but also as harbingers of doom. News of their discovery spread rapidly, igniting debates across the globe about humanity's future. Some hailed them as saviors for resisting the aliens' demands, while others condemned them as fools who had squandered Earth's last chance at redemption. The burden of their decision weighed heavily on the crew, isolating them from a world desperate for answers they couldn't provide. Yet amidst the chaos, seeds of hope began to sprout. Inspired by the crew's courage to forge their own path, humanity rallied together in unprecedented ways. Governments collaborated on sustainable solutions, scientists pushed the boundaries of innovation, and ordinary people embraced acts of kindness and resilience. It was far from perfect, but it was theirs, a testament to the indomitable spirit of a species determined to survive on its own terms. The crew, too, found solace in small victories. Though fractured by their experiences, they remained bound by the shared memory of what they had endured. Together, they wrote accounts of their journey, ensuring that future generations would remember both the allure and the danger of reaching beyond the stars. Their story became a cautionary tale, a reminder that progress must never come at the expense of identity. Years later, as the crew grew older and the world continued to heal, rumors surfaced of strange phenomena occurring in remote corners of the galaxy. Reports described sightings of shimmering lights, echoing the iridescent glow of the alien structure. Some claimed these were signs of the aliens returning, while others dismissed them as mere coincidence. The truth remained elusive, hidden among the infinite mysteries of the cosmos. For the crew of the EOS Dash, the question of whether they had made the right choice haunted them until their final days. They knew they might never know for certain, but they took comfort in one undeniable fact. Humanity still existed, not as a footnote in the annals of alien history, but as a thriving, flawed, and beautiful race carving its own destiny among the stars. And so, the legacy of their mission lived on, inspiring countless others to explore the unknown, not out of fear or desperation, but out of curiosity and wonder. Because even in the vastness of space, the most profound discoveries are often those we make about ourselves. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the depths of sci-fi storytelling. If you enjoyed this tale of cosmic intrigue and moral dilemmas, don't forget to subscribe for more mind-bending adventures that challenge your imagination. Until next time, keep looking up at the stars and questioning what lies beyond.